Hello, good evening.
Hello.
A storm of goodness.
Come on
There
now.
we
Come
go.
on, everybody. Get on in here.
Get on in, gather around, gather around.
Gather around. Gather around. Gather around. I like making songs up of my. Okay, here we go. Hello, everyone. Welcome back.
Welcome back.
This is actually day 5.
Day 5.
Yeah, we've been doing this all week. This is mental health check-in week.
You have your phone?
We've had Maria's joining us for the whole week. My phone is in there.
Whole week.
The whole week. And yeah, man, we've been learning so much information. A lot of people are very excited about these lives. We're gonna continue to do them as much as we can.
Yes.
But we just trying to, like I said, we're trying to heal the world from the inside out and from the outside.
Yeah. There you
All right. So
let me make sure.
So yeah, we're gonna make sure everybody's
in there
checking in.
Somewhere.
If you just here y'all go. All right, if y'all checking in, how you guys doing? If you're feeling good, let me see you press 1 in the comment box. If you're feeling good, today is Friday. We got to go to work tomorrow, but today is Friday. If you're feeling good, let me see you clap. 1. Come on.
Yes, Maverick.
Clap it up. Hey, Money Mav, you got to go upstairs,
You got to go upstairs.
Clap 1. What's going on, everybody? What are we doing today? So let's get right into it. It's okay. I got it. Everybody's here. I know. It's okay. Thank you, Phoenix. We're gonna get right into the topic this week. We're gonna give it over to you, Marias. Let us know what's going on. What are we talking about today?
My friends, it's been a great week to be with you. We've been on this journey 5 days, 5 days for mental health check-in. And we are so grateful for our Double Dutch family, because that's what we are, right?
Yes,
we are a family. We are a movement. I said that on Monday, and I believe that's sinking in and people are locking into that. So we've talked a lot about the whole person, right? We've talked about the whole person this week. We talked about checking in with our children. We've talked about checking in on our men. And then today we're going to wrap up on a topic surrounding grief. We know that grief is an area that all of us at some point will have to deal with, or we are dealing with. So we're going to dive into that to talk with us about, how do we manage, how do we cope, how do we deal with grief? And in fact, the phrase that I want us to kind of lean in as we talk about this is how do we grieve forward? Right? How do we grieve forward? And you'll hear me talk about that in a little while, that a lot of times, Michelle, people will say, we can just move on from grief, right? We could just get over grief. And I hear what they're saying, but allow me to say this, that, we don't have to move on from grief, but we can move on with grief. We can move forward with grief. Does that make sense?
It does.
Yes, it does.
So let's jump right in. I hear Sean there in the background. He's doing daddy duties. That's what we do, right?
Yeah. There's three of them. It's a lot sometimes.
It's a lot.
Yeah.
And let's say this, because as we're talking about this, I so love what Sean is modeling, right? And we want to say this, people watching, we don't babysit our kids. We father our kids. That's right. So Sean in the background, right? Because a lot of times people will say, oh, you're babysitting your daughter or you're babysitting your kids. No, my friends, we are not babysitting our kids. We are parenting our kids. We are fathering our kids. We are mothering our children. Make sense?
Makes sense.
All right. So let's see here. I'm going to throw this on the screen if I can get to it here.
And I'm ready to add it when you're ready.
All right. Can you see that?
Yes. Managing and navigating grief.
Yeah. So let's talk about that today. We're going to talk about how do we get through that? How do we manage that? At some point, again, all of us will have to deal with grief. We are dealing with grief. And we wanted to give you some tools to help you along, right? I'll remind us of what I've been saying all week. These last 5 days are not about assessing, diagnosing, or treating any specific condition, right? What we're doing is we're creating awareness, right? We're giving you the tools that you need to help you with your own self-regulating skills, right? So we want to be clear on that. We also want to remind you, particularly tonight, that some of what we say will hit home, right? It's going to hit your human frame. It will be personal. It's going to hit home to you. So if at any time this becomes triggering, just know that we've got your back, and we encourage you to do what you need to do to take care of yourself, whether it's breathing, whether it's exercise, whether it's meditating, whether it's prayer, whether it's singing, whatever it is, just engage in those self-regulating skills. Makes sense? Especially tonight, because tonight's topic can be so heavy, but we're going to do our best to speak hope in the midst of what we are facing. All right. So let's go right in. We always begin with an activity, with an exercise. It helps us to lean in. It helps us to connect with what we're talking about. This activity is called 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And it's really what's called a mindfulness or a grounding technique, right? So again, this is not we're not doing a therapeutic intervention at this moment. What we're doing is we're giving you some self-help, some regulating, some grounding techniques. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So here's what we're going to do, Sean and Michelle. As always, you're going to model that for us. What I'd like for you to do is to look around the room, and I'd like for you to tell us 5 things that you can see. 5 things you can see. And just name it out really quickly. 5 things you can see.
A light, keys,
DVD,
light switch, a door,
scissors,
doorknob,
deodorant,
computer.
lipstick.
Excellent. What about 4 things that you can touch? 4 things that you can
computer,
my phone, microphone,
the laptop,
deodorant,
my speaker, and my water bottle.
Wow. What about 3 things that you can hear? 3 things that you can hear.
I can
My
hear
child.
you. I can hear
me.
Michelle. I can hear
in the
me.
kitchen. I can hear Sean, and I can hear you.
There you go. What about 2 things that you can smell? 2 things that you can smell. Oh, I knew you were going to do that.
And I can smell my wife.
I knew y'all were going to do that. I just knew it. And what about 1 thing that you can taste? 1 thing that you can taste. Watch it now. Watch it now.
This cashew cream that I just made, I could just taste it. I just made them a plate.
I'm hungry.
Wow. Good. What was it like to do that activity? What was it like to do that exercise?
Oh, it's always fun. I love an activity.
Yeah, it was fun, right? It was cool.
Yeah.
All of those things. Anything stood out to you while you were doing that exercise that kind of caught your attention?
That things kept getting closer. Meaning first it was, further, then it's like, okay, what you could touch, what you could hear, what you could taste. It's one level closer.
Absolutely. Good.
I mean, it felt like I was being intentional.
You were being intentional. Wow.
I had to realize, okay, but I could see the keys over there. Oh, I can smell my wife next to me. I mean, because she's next to me, I wouldn't have gone, oh, I can smell you. But now I have to be intentional. I have to focus on it. So
absolutely. And as we talk about grief, again, this is a mindfulness exercise, and mindfulness really means to be present in the moment, right? To be present in the moment, not so much focusing on what happened in the past or what might be happening in the future, but just being present in the moment, right? And when we talk about mindfulness, it's not just being present in the moment, but it's taking intentional choices, right? It's being intentional about what you're doing, what you're seeing, what you're hearing, what you're feeling. And when we begin to talk about grief, a lot of times it's hard for us to be present in the moment. It's hard for us to unplug. It's hard for us to take a moment and to smell the roses, so to speak, right? To smell the rose that's next to you, right? It's hard for us in the moment to be thankful for what we do have, right? To be thankful for what's present, what's in front of us. So great technique for you to engage, that if at any time you're feeling overwhelmed, just take a moment and unplug and look around the room, right? Look around where you are and say, wow, I've got a phone, I've got a wife, I've got children, right? I've got a home, right? I'm here. I miss my loved one, but I'm grateful for what they deposited in me, right? Here's something I hadn't thought about in this context, but it just came to my mind, is to think about legacy, right? And legacy is not what you leave for someone, but it's what you leave in someone. Does that make sense?
100%.
So keep that in mind, that you are creating legacy. You are living out the legacy of your loved one. All right. Cool. So let's jump right in. Let's talk about grief. Again, you've heard me say this all throughout this week. When we talk about mental health awareness, when we talk about even suicide awareness, and even now talking about grief, we don't take a sad, shock, traumatic approach. And someone is saying, but that doesn't make any sense, Dr. Cassell. Dr. Moraes, that doesn't make any sense. It is sad. Absolutely. It's sad losing your loved one, right? It is sad. It is traumatic. But again, if we take that approach, right, it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. And you've heard me say that over and over again, right? It makes the grief that more severe and that more deep if we take that approach. Does that make sense? So we want you to feel what you feel, but we don't want to take this sad, shock, traumatic approach. We want to take a strength-based approach, right? And we talked about that before. What's working in your life? What's going well in your life? Who are the people that's a source of strength for you? And then we want you to take a hope-focused approach, right? That says things might not be working out right now, but in just a little while, it will work out.
That's right.
If today is my worst day, but then by definition, tomorrow will be a better day, right? And then we want to take a resiliency approach. And what's that approach? That I've got bounce back, I've got comeback, I'm an overcomer, I'm a victor, I'm not a victim, right? All of those things is the approach that we want to take. So when we talk about grief, here's the first thing I want to highlight is that grief is the natural emotional response resulting from a loss, right? The loss of people, property, possession, and pets. So people will say, is it natural for me to grieve? Absolutely. We want people to grieve. And a lot of times, oh, you shouldn't grieve. You got to get over it. And sometimes in people's attempt to help us along, they will miss that aspect. Oh, you know, God wanted your loved one in heaven and he was the best cook, and all of those things are great. And that's wonderful. And we try to be kind and nice to people, but allow people to grieve. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
It's okay to grieve. Grieve, cry, feel what you feel. Let's not hyper spiritualize, and I'll talk about that in a moment. Let's not, try to be hyper with this thing where we don't want people to grieve. It's okay to feel what you feel and allow the people in your lives to grieve. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah. So really important in that. So here's some things about grief. I put a lot of stuff on the screen. We're not going to read all of these, but I want you to take a look with your eyes. I feel like this is a great way of helping people learn, right? You put things on the screen and you help them to lean in and to highlight what stands out for them. So I've got A through G, a lot of things on the screen, but I want you to lean in and to say to me, this is what stands out about grief, what you've put here on the screen. So take a look with your eyes and you tell me which one resonates with you, which one hits your human frame. And then I'll highlight just a few of them.
For me, can I answer that now?
Absolutely. And go ahead. Hold on for a minute, Michelle. Go ahead. Those of you online, what did I do there? We want you to put that in the chat feature. Sorry about that.
You just changed it. Yeah.
Yeah. Put that in the chat feature.
So go ahead and read the screen and type in the letter that stands out to you. Type in the letter that stands out to you.
That resonates with you, hits your human frame.
That's right.
Saying, wow, that connects with me.
So the one that stands out to me is grief is not limited to a timeline or geography, but it's revealed through triggers, events, holidays, anniversaries. And that is so, my father passed away in 21 and his birthday was this week. And the birthday, I was great. It's always been a day of celebration, and I continue that and make sure it's still a day of celebration. But I think when great things happen, especially when the loss of a parent, usually you would tell your parent, like they're the people that's the most hyped for you
Right.
during your whole life. So when big things come up, I realize those are triggers. It's not necessarily a time frame or like it's been, and I think I realized that through time, that whenever something great happens, it's like this, it almost doesn't feel as great because the person who would be so high, and I still have a lot of people in my life that are excited for me with a number of things, but it's my parent, you know what I'm saying? So it's just a different, but it's like, that makes so much sense. Like, it's not time. So that could be 10 years from now when you get your first, I don't know, whatever that is. Whatever happens, you have another baby, or I don't know, something big happens for you, whatever celebratory to you feels like, oh my God, it's a trigger you know what I'm saying, every time.
Wow, good. And that's so important because we do people an injustice when we say to them, oh, that was 2021. It's now 2024. Yes. That was, I thought you got over your dad's passing already. Why are you still grieving that? And, someone will say to you, well, Michelle, what do you mean by that? You've got Sean right there. You've got mom right there. Why is it that you're still grieving? My friends, keep in mind, it's not limited to a timeline or geography, but it's going to be revealed through those triggers, birthdays, holidays, anniversary of the death, even through the senses, right? You'll remember what the person smelled like, right? You'll remember the sound of their voice. You'll remember a voicemail, right? So all of those things. And what we're saying here is it is okay for those triggers to be at play. Now, the next question people will ask, so when will those triggers go away? I wish I had an answer for you. Right. I wish I had an answer for you. And here's the thing that, I often say, be careful of people who make it seem like they always have the answer. Sometimes it's okay not to have the answer.
Yes.
Does that make sense? Right. So there's the people who they want to show you how brilliant they are. They want to show you how wise they are. And they'll tell you, oh, yeah, you'll be over that thing in 10 years. My friends, let's not set people up that way. It's okay just to walk through that and to be aware of those triggers. And as time moves on, those triggers might be less deep and less severe, right? It will become more manageable, right? And that's what I tell people, that medicine and therapy, right? It's not necessarily a cure, but it helps to mitigate and make those feelings more manageable. It makes the lows less deep and less severe, and the highs more manageable. Does that make sense? Right. So as you move through grief, just know that over time, whatever time that is, it will become more manageable, right? It will be something that you will walk through. Any others stand out to you? Let me highlight just a few. Oh, Sean, did you want to share yours?
Well, no, I just had a couple of things, right? So I guess the one that I'm trying to figure out where to go first. So it's interesting. Like my father died 38 years ago, and I can still get emotional at the drop of a dime.
That's right.
Right. And so I wonder, I'm like, wow, like, am I dealing with it or not? You know what I'm saying? Like, am I dealing with it, or am I just kind of just moving forward from the time it actually happened?
Right.
Because it almost feels like it happened yesterday. Right. Another thing that stands out to me, well, I guess that's one question. Another thing that stands out to me is the very first one, loss and grief are inevitable. I hate that. That actually bothers me. And I think because I realized that at 8 years old when my father died, right, it unfortunately starts the clock for my mother. Like I'm already like, oh my God, if it happened to him, it can happen to her.
Wow.
You know what I'm saying? So I literally hate loss and grief are inevitable. I hate that we have to face it anyway. I know we do, but that stands out to me because that bothers me the most.
Wow, good.
I'm not in control. I can't do anything to fix it.
Wow, I love what you did just now, Sean, because you are freeing a lot of people right now by saying that, right? That we hate this. I absolutely hate letter A as well.
Yeah.
Right. I'm telling you, as the clinician, as the person that deals with grief therapy, trauma-informed care, and the list goes on and on. I hate that we have to deal with the inevitable, that grief and loss will happen. And that's one way of dealing with grief, by saying, I hate it. I mean, I just absolutely hate it. But that's how we process it. And that's what's going to be my response to your question, that what you continue to do is you continue to process it. You're not stuffing it. You're not suppressing it. You are feeling it, right? Will that ever go away? It will not. I hate to say that to you, but it will look differently as you grow older, right?
Right. That's right.
Even having children, it just, it looks
It
different.
feels differently, right? It's transferred differently, right? It's almost like what happens with parenting, right? And you're learning this. I'm going to learn this as well as I parent my 4-year-old. She's 4 now, and as she gets older, how you parented your children when they were younger is not how you'll parent them when they get older, right? You know, I had one wise person say this to me: you will always be protective of your children, right? But it will just look different, right? So that's what I would say to someone watching 38 years later, 40 years, 45 years, 50 years down the road. It's going to look different. It will feel similar, but it will look different, right? And you'll walk through it a lot differently because of just by virtue of life, just by virtue of seeing things through different lens. Make sense?
Yeah. Last thing, I was gonna say, secondary grief is always interesting to me too, because it's just like when I met Sean, I hadn't ever actually met someone who lost a parent so early. So then, as we go through our lives, I grieve that his father can't see the amazing, like, be physically present for certain things. So it's like that secondhand grief is interesting. And the only time I remember it is when we lost my grandmother, and watching my mother lose her mother. It was like double. It was like the secondary grief of watching her experience such a loss. And then my own grief from losing my grandmother. So then when I met someone who lost their parents so early, it was a different kind, especially because we share a life. There's different grieving stuff that I have because I wish that, that person was present. His father was present physically.
I mean, you said that so well, right? The secondary grief, the vicarious grief that we feel for the other person, especially those that we love, right? Absolutely, absolutely. And we get to be those people that help to carry others, right? One of the things I want to highlight, I didn't put it anywhere, but this is something I help people with, is as people are grieving, let's never use the word at least. At least you were with your father for up until 60. No. What you do is you diminish someone's pain that way.
Yes.
Oh, at least your son, at least you had your son for 20 years. At least your father, right? At least you had a father. I didn't have a father. You see where I'm going? Let's be mindful of some of the language that we use. And as you were speaking, Michelle, you brought that to mind because we're helping people to understand, how do we help others to grieve, right? How do we help people to get through? And we never say to people, at least, we simply let them know we're sorry for your loss.
Right.
I'm here for you, right? And here's another thing, that you don't always have to have an answer. Just your very presence. Remember, you said that yesterday, Michelle. Yes. Just your very presence can be of a great support. So a lot of times when people are grieving, we feel like we have to have something to say, right? We have to have a good, right? Oh, your father would have been proud of you. Yes, he would have, right? We know that, right? And sometimes we need to say that, right? But sometimes just allow it to be what it is, right? And just let your presence speak. You don't have to have an answer. You don't have to just simply saying, I've got your back. I'm here for you. Here's a tissue. Here is a, and the list goes on and on, right? But it's so important. We did, I learned a lot from, we did a 30 minutes, our own voice with Pastor K. Warren. Pastor K. Warren is the co-founder of Saddleback Church. Rick Warren, if you've heard of one of the largest churches in America, Rick Warren, they lost their son by suicide. And she talks about that, right? Being a pastor and a son who took his life by suicide and what that meant to them. And that's one of the things that she shared with us in that 30 minutes in our own voice. She shared, let's never use that word at least, right? Because there are people who would have said to them, at least you had your son for X amount of years, right? So I would encourage people, if you're dealing with grief, that's on our YouTube channel. She does a great job of sharing her story. Rick and Kay Warren as well. Let's put up a couple more and then we'll move forward on this. This is good dialogue here. Let's put that on the screen there, Sean. I wanted to highlight that grief is complex, letter B, and complicated. And here's the key. There is no one way, there's no one pathway for people to experience grief, right? There's no one way, especially within families. And I really want to highlight this. When families go through grief, everyone is going to go through it differently.
Yes.
Right. And a lot of times there can be tension in families because you're saying to like your sibling, well, how come you're not crying?
Right.
How come, when everybody else is crying, you're in the kitchen cooking? How come you're the one that's, up front and you're the one that's talking when everybody else, you get where I'm going? So a lot of times we have to be mindful that within families, people are going to grieve differently. You're from the same family, same parents, same experience, but we grieve differently. No one way. And allow your family members to grieve the way that they do. Some will be doers, right? They're the ones that they're going to do all the cooking. They're going to do all the cleaning. Then you'll have some in the family. And, it's just how we're wired. Some in the family, they're going to be the ones to be the talker, right? They talk to everybody. They make everybody feel good. Then you'll have those who will be the administrator. That's the person that pulls everything together, goes to the funeral home.
Yes. Yeah.
Right? And then you have the other one that might be the one that shows up, eats the food, don't cry, don't talk. And you're like, but why aren't you grieving? Just keep that in mind, right? And then letter C, I want to highlight this because, of course, I'm clear. I'm embedded in the faith community. That's how I cope. That's how I manage. That's how I navigate life. I'm a Christian. That's my faith experience, right? But I found that people of faith, sometimes we hyper spiritualize grief. So those of you who are part of the faith community, just know that it's okay to grieve. It's okay to mourn, because a lot of times, because you're a person of faith, they will say to you, oh, right. They just hyper spiritualize it. Makes sense?
Yeah.
Yes.
I want to highlight letter G, which is, great quote by a great doctor. If you're ever in his presence, make sure you get a selfie with him. Make sure you get his autograph. This doctor is amazing. This doctor is wonderful. Listen.
Screenshot it.
All right. Let's get the name.
Listen to what he says. But this is what I believe, right? Some thoughts I've put together here. We don't move on from our grief, right? We can move forward with our grief. We don't have to move on from our grief, but we can move forward with our grief, because people will say, let's just move on. I was sharing that with Michelle earlier. Let's just move on from grief. My friends, don't you ever feel like you have to move on from your grief, right? But just know that you can move forward with that grief, carry that grief, right? Walk through life with that grief. And I know this sounds, kind of contradictory to what you've heard, but hear it from me, right? That we do people an injustice when we say to them, you're going to move on from your grief, right? Let's help people understand that you can move forward with that grief. All right. Any thoughts on that? Let's chat for a moment.
I think that really stands out to me, because I feel like moving on feels more guilt.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? So moving forward feels less guilty, because especially with our lost ones that we love, we don't ever want to move on from them.
Yeah.
And we can't ever move on from them. But moving forward with them feels so much more that they're always present with us.
That's it.
What's the difference between moving on and moving forward, just in case?
That's a good question. It's what Michelle just said, right? It's this idea of I'm leaving grief behind. I'm not dealing with it, right? I'm over it, right? Yeah, we know that we lost our loved one, and we just kind of move forward. We suppress it. We put it in the rearview mirror. We just move on, right? We're just thinking that we're just over it. But moving forward, it's this idea of I carry my loved one with me, right? You're journeying with me, right?
Right.
You're with me, and there's could be several dimensions to that, but it's this idea of, man, I'm not leaving you behind, right?
Right.
You go with me, right? I carry your memories, I carry your legacy, I'm living out your legacy. That's what we mean with moving forward, and that's just some definitions of that. Because here's what I want to leave it open for people. Is this, catch this. I would say this back to people. What does moving forward mean to you?
Right.
That's how I just did that.
I love that. I love that. I love it. Okay, I wanted to share something. And I really wanted to say this because I like sharing my experience, but it's not for you to take it if it's not for you. It's just my personal experience. So a way that I move forward on Sean's father's birthday, when we can, we always try to light a candle and remember the birthday, right? For my dad, what I started this year was I have some of his old clothes to wear one of his shirts every year on his birthday, meaning that's how I move forward by continuing, because I've been celebrating that day since I was a kid. You know what I'm saying? So, and it was and it's always like recognizing signs if that works for you. Like, the trainer called me Shell on my dad's birthday. He doesn't ever call me Shell, and that's what my dad called me. So it's just being aware or doing things. For me, that's how I move forward with grief without, those are things that I like to make traditional things because it feels like, I don't know, it just feels like a new way to celebrate a person who's not physically here.
Right.
Absolutely.
So they're always with you.
And like for me, like my father was amazing. I had an amazing dad. And I think for me, I try to be the parent he was to me, to my children. And that's what I do. I get emotional now.
That's legacy.
So I just take from some of the things that he did with me, and I do it with my children. And it's almost like I get the same reaction from my children. You know what I'm saying? So it just feels like he's with me when I do the things that he did for me, for them.
Wow. So did you catch what happened? And I love the way that, and I'm grateful I took the time to do that. What does moving forward mean to you?
Right.
So I filled in the blanks and I gave some thoughts of what does it, look like in general. But I want you to see what moving forward did just now and how you are moving forward.
Right.
Look at what you said, Michelle, right? You're creating memories, right? You're wearing his shirt. You're celebrating. That's what moving forward means to you. What does it mean for Sean, right? It's parenting the way that his dad parented, right? And that's how we move forward. We want to say to people, find the way that works for you. Find what moving forward like for you, right? We can draw from some of these things because here's the thing. Someone might say, well, Michelle, there's no way on earth I could wear my loved one's t-shirt because if I do that, I'm going to lose it.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's right.
Traumatic. You see where I'm going? It will be traumatic for me. There's no way, Sean, I'm going to parent the way that my dad parented because you know what? If I do that, it's traumatizing to me. So what we're saying here to you is you find the way that helps you to move forward. Draw from others, right? But what does moving forward look like for you? And another way to
no, you go. Okay. Keep going. I'll read what they said, but you go.
Okay. Yeah. And another way to think about is how have you moved forward in the past? Because the way that you move forward in other areas perhaps would be a way that you can move forward in this new journey that you're on, right? So if you've been a person, let's say, for example, you've been a person that you sing, right? That's how you sing or you write songs, right? That's how you've moved forward well, perhaps that's a way you can move forward in this new season,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
If you're a person that you have a vision board, or does that make sense?
Yes.
Whatever works for
That makes a ton of sense.
and I want to say to somebody, whatever has worked in the past, how have you coped in the past? That's a strength-based approach, right? We always ask that question. How have you coped in the past, right?
Yeah.
If you've coped in the past in a particular area, that's how you are wired, right? So for me, I shared with Sean and Michelle that I think in pictures, and you could see that I've got pictures on the screen. I talk in pictures. I speak in pictures. That's how I am wired. So whenever I'm faced with whatever it is, pictures are going to speak 1,000 words for me. All right. Cool. You were saying that some things that people are saying. Let's hear what our friends are saying.
Someone shared they've gotten back to work and renamed their LLC in honor of their father.
That's it right there. That's how you move.
That's really good.
That's really nice. Oh, and this is my dad necklace too.
Wow.
I repurposed my mom's clothing and jewelry.
Ooh,
Beautiful.
mercy. Wow,
That's
Sean and Michelle, I've got chills on this one. Yeah,
I know, right?
That is beautiful.
Yeah, my cousin, he was telling me, he's saying how amazing my dad was.
Yeah.
Finest person I ever known in my life. Yeah, you are the perfect father. He's talking about me.
Yes.
You're making all of us proud, following in your father's footsteps.
Yes.
that's it. That's
Not today. Not
today.
You ain't gonna get me. Wait, I'm looking in the wrong place. Not today.
Oh, right.
I love this. What's happening, Sean and Michelle? We are creating a safe place. Remember, we did that balloon exercise.
Yeah.
And I said, create a safe place for people to put their stuff. Sean and Michelle, I'm not hyping you up. I'm just speaking truth to power. You both are a safe place. That's why when people talk to you, we want to tell you all of our stuff. You ever notice that?
No. If that's not him, I feel it. Like,
it's true.
I'm telling. No, listen. I'm telling. Here's a transparent moment.
I'm a safe. You tell me. I ain't telling nobody.
He is not. I'm telling you. We've experienced that together, right? So you create that safe place, and also create a safe place. And I'll give you this experience is coming back to my mind. Create a safe place where people can fall apart. Yep. I know that's tough, but create a safe place. I'll give you an experience that I had as a therapist. You won't know who this is, of course. I'm not giving any names. I'm not crossing any lines. But I remember I was dealing with a particular case where a young man, his father had died, and it was very public. And they brought him to where we were in the office because the mom was concerned about him grieving. And he would not talk. He wouldn't say it. He wouldn't address it. It was all in the media. All of those things were happening with this kid, and he just would not talk. And, I worked with him for a few sessions, and finally I said, okay, this is the day we're going to go there. And I prepared myself for that because, of course, he's a kid. And I knew what the day could have looked like. And I remember I got to talking to him, and I pulled out my emotion faces. It's one of the things I use, and I had him point to some of the emotions on the paper, and so when you think about your dad, which of these emotions come to mind? And immediately you saw, finally it hit him, and as he pointed to what he was feeling, he lost it. And then I remember him saying, and I'll never forget this because this was a great teachable moment for me. I remember him saying, I want to get out of here. I'm leaving. I got to get out of here. And his mom was ready to take him. And I said, you will not take him out of here today. Now, that was tough for me as a therapist to do, right?
Right.
Not take him out of here today. He's going to stay here, and he's going to get through this, right? And I knew I was, I was being tough in that moment. And then this is what I said after everyone had calmed down. I said to the mom, I would rather him lose it here than for him to lose it in the streets and not have the supports that he needs.
That's right. Yeah.
Does that make sense? So I want you to create a place that is safe so that our kids and people and loved ones, they don't lose it somewhere else and they don't have the love and the support that they need. Does that make sense? But it was tough. It was tough. I mean, we had the session, they left, and I went to my medical director at the time and I said, that was a tough session. I want you to know we're probably going to get some pushback on this, right? But I'm letting you know, as the expert in the room, this is what has to be done. And of course, for a few weeks, we didn't hear from them. I was like, oh boy, we lost them as a patient. What? I tell you what happened. They came back a few weeks later and he was beaming. And the mom said, thank you, Dr. Cassell, for what you did. He finally got it out. So I just felt like I would share that with you. Please be a safe place. Allow people to fall apart. It's okay to fall apart. You don't have to, hold it together, right? It's okay. All right, let's move forward. Let's talk about anticipatory grief. A lot of times when people talk about grief, they don't speak a lot about this aspect of grief because it's grief that is not present. It is almost like grief that is in the future or forward, right? But there's something called anticipatory grief. And here's what it is. It's grief that occurs before an impending loss. And a lot of times people don't realize that we go through grief when we're dealing with impending situations. For example, getting a terminal diagnosis, right? You begin to grieve the time, unfortunately, right? You begin to feel that loss, right? So we want people to know that there is such thing as anticipatory grief, or being diagnosed with a progressive disease like Alzheimer's or cystic fibrosis or muscular dystrophy or macular degeneration, right? When you get a diagnosis of that, right, sometimes that grief can start now, even before you get down the road, right? Or having to deal with end-of-life care, such as hospice. And what about letter D? Sometimes life's changing situations, like an impending divorce, or a child leaving for college, or having to move to another house, or the loss of a job, that can trigger some grief as well. So we want you to be aware of that. Or caring for a child with a chronic disease, like a developmental condition like autism. And I want to highlight that one. Again, 30 minutes in our own voice. I did an interview. His name is Master Cole. And he was sharing that when he got the diagnosis of his son having autism, he went through such deep grief. He couldn't understand, because he was saying, and he talked about how he was grieving, and wondering what is going to happen to his child. What is it going to be like for him? And he allowed grief to flow through him. And then from there, he, of course, he move forward, and of course is now raising a special needs child. So we want people to know that if you feel these things, it's not that you're weird. It's not that something is wrong with you. It's a natural process that you're going through. Or having to undergo an amputation or a life-changing medical procedure like a mastectomy or a colostomy or a hysterectomy, right? Keep in mind that you can anticipate that grief, right? Particularly as a female, as a woman, right? When that happens to females, sometimes we overlook that, right? Well, why are you making such a big deal about a mastectomy? Why are you making such a big deal about a hysterectomy? That's how you are defined, right?
Yes, yeah.
My womanhood is gone, right?
Or that's the same with menopause.
Say it again. Oh, menopause. There you go.
Because you're losing the part of you that some people make you a woman is having a baby, and when you're no longer able to have even dealing with infertility, it's like a loss.
Infertility.
It's just like literally when you go through menopause, and I've heard people go through this. You've had your period since you've been taught that was the introduction to womanhood. So it's like you may get a little. You anticipate that grief that's going to happen because you lose a part of. You think you don't actually. It's a different stage. But you lose that part of your womanhood, having your menstrual cycle.
And let's even speak to males. And we don't often talk about this, right? But even sexual dysfunction in males, as males get older, right? There's that anticipatory grief that can happen with your maleness, right, is going out the door. And we don't want to talk about that as young men. We can't even think about that, right? But we want people to be aware that what you will feel, it's natural, right? Because you get in that moment and you're like, what's wrong with me? Why would I be grieving the loss of my womanhood? Why would I be grieving the loss, right? It is a natural experience. Those are natural emotions that you are facing. Make sense?
Yeah. Yes. And could I say something about that? Connecting it to Jumping Juice 10,000 or even changing diets. And this may sound weird, but a fruitarian, Bobby, actually helped me to make sense of this. So when people go vegan, right? Like you grieve the traditional things that you used to do, or that you almost have anticipate grief that you're going to have, that your grandmother's going to offer you the oxtails and you're going to, say no. Like you grieve those things, or even moments. Sean and I used to go to the Waffle House. Like you grieve, you know what I'm saying? Those things. And even when someone did a fast, sometimes food is how we cover it up, right? And so sometimes when you're fasting, you have to face it. You don't have the bread to help you cover it up. You don't have the chicken to help you. Sometimes when you fast and even change your diet, you actually have to like go through it. You know what I mean? Because alcohol is something, but food is also
addiction. Absolutely.
To cover up grief. So even in terms of changing our diets and fasting, those are things that it's like, oh, you have to face those things.
You do.
Yeah,
absolutely. Even getting married, and I remember when I share this with couples, right, as they're getting ready to marry, to marry someone. Sometimes you can experience a sense of grief, and you're like, "Oh no, Dr. Cassell." I remember, when I bring that up to couples, they're like, "Oh no," and then like, you're actually right, because you can grieve the sense of course, it's a joyous occasion. You're coming together. You're creating a new life, but you're losing some of who you are, your singleness. You are losing, this is how you've been for a long time, right? So we want to say to people, if you experience these symptoms, just know that you are not alone in your anticipatory grief, right? It's natural, right? It's common is what we want to say. So we want to just highlight a few things, and then we're doing great in time. We want people to know that, of course, there are 5 stages. They tell us there are 5 stages of grief. So just be aware of the stage you might find yourself in. And here's what I've put on the screen is, keep in mind that these stages are fluid. They're not static or sequential or cyclic. And what I mean by that is, it doesn't mean that you're going to go through denial, then you'll go through anger, then you'll be depressed, and then you'll be right. It could be all over the place. You could start out by bargaining, or blaming. Well, maybe if I had, or maybe, you'll go through anger, and then there'll be some denial, or there should be some depression. So be aware of what stage you might find yourself. And then here's something that has really helped me to help people, is that not only does grief come in stages, but it comes in waves. Waves, right? And let's be grateful. Let's thank God it comes in waves, and it's not just one big wave. Otherwise, it would take us under. Does that make sense?
That's right.
It gives you time to breathe, to catch yourself, right? A couple of other things. Grief, of course, comes in stages and waves. But here's something I actually learned from one of my clients, one of my patients. She shared this with me. She said, the way that I grieve my loved one is through the 5 senses. And I told her, you know what, I'm going to build on that. And I've been helping people with that you have the 5 senses of grief. You can grieve through the 5 senses. What do we mean by that? By remembering the smell, the sound, and seeing pictures, and the list goes on and on. Does that make sense? So you can grieve through the 5 senses, and it's okay. She shared, and again, you would never know who this is. She shared for her, she kept the voicemail of her loved one.
Oh yeah, I've heard people do that.
And that's how she copes, right? And she has pictures of her loved one. But for someone else, that might not work, because if you hear that person's voice, it's going to be over, right?
That's right.
So,
Yeah. Right.
Again, find out what stage you are, and then find out how you can grieve through those 5 senses, right? What else I want to highlight before we pause and just kind of check in with each other here is just be aware about when grief becomes clinical. Yes. Which is where I really want to help people, right? Is it's common for us to grieve, but keep in mind, if it becomes acute, meaning it doesn't seem to go away, right? The loss of your loved one becomes overwhelming, unmanageable, unbearable, right? You're constantly yearning for the deceased, the loved one, right? Experiencing guilt about the idea of moving on and accepting the loss. That's when it becomes clinical. And if you or someone is experiencing these symptoms, it's disrupting your daily functioning, like sleeping, eating, your parents, your grooming, your energy levels. It's affecting work, school, faith, and the list goes on and on. That's when you know that clinical intervention is needed. So let's stop right there and just check in.
That's good. You know what I wanted to share with people? And I only want to share this just in case, so someone doesn't feel alone. My grandmother was the first person I ever experienced to be cremated, not buried, right? Mm. And burials as a child always made grief feel unmanageable to me. Mm. When, for me, my father was cremated as well. It's like they get to keep living. A burial, for some reason, when I used to go visit, we had traditions. That tradition has always it made it unmanageable for me. It's almost like, when you said you approach something with sadness or with, and I might be wording it wrong, you could correct me if I'm wrong, but you don't want to, what is it? Go at it with
a sad, shock, traumatic approach.
There you go. Yes, that is what the burials did for me. Mm. So when someone is cremated, it's like I get to always approach it positively by wearing a shirt for the birthday, by doing a candle I get to make it, approach it in a.
Does it seem more final?
Yes.
In the grave. In the grave, it just feels like it's over.
It's over again and again every time.
Yeah, but when they're cremated, they could be right next to you.
Yes, and it feels like you could celebrate their,
Yeah.
For my interpretation, I just wanted to share that for anyone who has ever felt that way before. I don't know if I'm alone, but you're not alone if you've ever felt that way before.
You can't be alone. Yeah,
you can't be alone. And let's do this. Let's do this, Sean and Michelle. Just take a moment, before we move forward in the last few minutes here, and letting people know that we are journeying with you.
Yes.
And we value the sacredness of your loved one.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So as we are talking through grief, I want us to be mindful of that, right? Because we're talking about our loved ones here, right? And you'll watch this again, or you're watching it now. We want to take a moment in honoring the memory of your loss, whatever that loss is, right? In saying to you, we honor that, we value that, right? We count it sacred that you've allowed us to speak into your experience. Make sense?
Yes.
Really important. So how do you grieve forward? You saw some of this in a couple of our sessions. It applies here. Feel it. Right? Feel it. Allow grief to flow through you. Feelings are neither negative or positive. They are just what they are, right? Name it and tame it. When you name it, excuse me, then you can tame it.
Right.
Name what you're feeling. I'm angry. I'm depressed. Grief, sadness, anxiety, numbness. Sometimes we are just numb, right? We just are not feeling anything, right? Try to name it, and then you can tame it and then deal with it. You can't change what you won't feel, what you won't talk about, or you won't confront. All right. And of course, recognize how it's affecting you, right? Identify the changes and the shifts in your life. So that's how we grieve forward. And then a couple more, and then we will wrap up here our time for questions. comments. I shared this earlier, right? How do we grieve forward? Shared this earlier in the week. I'll get to that one, but this first one I love is this: we can treat grief like we treated the development of film in the past. Now, those young people who are, they won't know about this, Sean, but some of us that's been around for a while. In the past, right, when you took a picture, right, the film had to be taken to a dark room, right? It had to be developed in the dark room, and you had to go back a week later or 2 days later, right? Because it was in the dark room. Well, that's the way that we can treat grief, is that give time for it to be processed, right? The process involves waiting. That's what happened when you were developing the film. And to open that door early, they had this thing in the dark room, and if you went in there and you opened that thing early, it would mess up the picture. Right. We need to treat grief. It's a process, my friends. Allow it to happen. Let it be. Give yourself permission to grieve and to be human. Give yourself permission. Of course, self-care is the key, right? Give yourself permission to take care of yourself, right? I tell people this in grief therapy. People feel so guilty for enjoying life. They feel guilty that they're feeling happy again, right? They feel guilty that they're back to, whatever it is that they used to do before. It's okay to take care of yourself. It's okay to feel joy in the midst of your sadness, right? Because too many people, particularly those who've lost a spouse, there's a sense of guilt if they begin to feel happiness again, and if they begin to quote unquote live again, right? It's okay to live again, dream again, smile again, laugh again. You are not dismissing your loved one, but you are moving forward with grief. And then I shared this earlier this week. I love this from Dr. Caroline Leaf. She said, empathy is getting down in the dark places with someone who is suffering and showing them that they're not alone. You don't need to provide solutions or answers. Just your presence is enough in the moment. Michelle, you said it, right? Think about what you would want if you were in that person's place. All right. That's how we grieve forward, my friends. Any thoughts? Let's chat for a minute, and then I'll share one more thing about what I'm challenging us to do as we come out of this series.
I had a personal question. Go ahead.
Oh, just real quick. Don't forget your question. But it's kind of like a statement. But I think another thing that helps you to move forward is that the person who passed away would want you to move forward. So like, God forbid, I mean, if everything goes right, I pass along before my children, right? I wouldn't want them to grieve over me. I would want them to move forward. I would want them to move on with grief. I would want them to be happy, and know that I'm okay, and that all that I want to do is make sure that they're okay. And so I think that also helps to move forward, that the person who passed away would probably want you to move forward.
Wow. I think I have a question. What are tools for someone who has to grieve someone who owes them an apology?
Yes.
Or someone who they're an abuser? I think it's an odd situation, especially in terms of parents, because parent dynamics are very, complicated. So if a person who wasn't good to you, who still owes you an apology, who didn't, and they might have apologized eventually, but your hope for reconciling with them also goes away with their physical loss. So what are tools to grieve with that anger? You know what I mean? It's the love / person that you didn't treat you well.
Yeah, that's a good question. And that's why that's part of where therapy comes into play, right? And many sessions of, one of the things, we talk about it again, we're not giving a specific approach here, is, things left unsaid, and giving the person an opportunity to say the things that they could not have said to the person. Number one, because of maybe the relationship is fractured, or the person may have passed on. So you give place for people to say what they've not been able to say, right? And also recognize and come to grips with Gary Smalley and Dr. Gary Smalley and Dr. Gary Trent, they wrote a book many years ago called The Gift of the Blessing. And in that book, they talk about the fact that they were never able, some people are never able to get the gift of the blessing from the loved one that passed away. But what they do is they find a way to give that gift to others. So what you did not give, you give to others, right? I say that a lot, to people. It's been part of my lived experience, as I talk about my own journey with my own dad, right? The fact I had to come to grips, Sean, that my dad just could not give it to me, right? And it took me a long time to get that. And a lot of times we hold people hostage because we're saying, well, how come he couldn't be a good dad and she couldn't be a good mother? And right? Keep in mind that when you listen to their stories, right? Everybody's story is not your story, Sean or Michelle. They didn't have a good dad, right? But keep in mind, when you listen to their stories, you realize they just didn't have what it is. So we're asking them to give something that they just could not give.
Yeah.
Right? And I had to come to that place as Maurice, not as Dr. Cassell, but as Maurice. I had to come to that place to say, you know what? My dad just did not have what it took to father me. But here's what I did, right? Before he passed away, what I was able to do was to be able to say this, right? He may not have been there for me, but I was there for him. Did you just catch that? And that was for me when I was able to be there for him in his last moments and his last days and doing things for him. That's what freed me. Was I angry at times? Oh man, was I angry? And I wanted to say to him, why weren't you there? And why couldn't you be a good father? But what, and again, this comes out of my Christian experience. What the Holy Spirit helped me to understand was you were there for your dad. So I say that to people, that you may not have had the gift of the blessing from your loved one, but you give to others what you did not get. Right?
Come on, somebody.
Come on.
Because I believe you call that a word.
Hello.
That is a word.
That's a
word.
I'll
collect an offering in a moment, right? Because what you're doing is you've learned in reverse, right? That's what I say. You learn in reverse. Learn what not to do. Good stuff. So here's something I want to challenge people, and then we'll wrap up Sean with questions, and Sean and Michelle with questions and answers if we have time. I want to challenge us. Go ahead.
I'm sorry. One second. Guys, if you have any questions, write it now in the comment box. You want to read this? I can't see it. Wait. Let's roll it up.
You gotta scroll it down.
Hold on. Let me bring it back to the screen so we can see it better. Oh, why is it like that? What happened? Okay. All right. Yeah. So if you have any questions or comments, go ahead and start writing them now. Stop writing them now. But also, if you're getting good information, if you're getting some really good information, y'all go ahead and press the number 1. Y'all go ahead and press the number 1. If you are, you know what? Don't press the number 1.
Sean, you're already pressing the number 1.
You got to type in DR. You got to type in DR. If you're getting good information, y'all better type in DR. And I don't mean Dominican Republic.
Please.
I want y'all to type in DR.
That's your husband, Michelle. That's your husband.
I know.
He belongs to you.
I can't help myself.
I know.
All right. So go ahead.
Yeah, let's put that on the screen, because here's something as we wrap up this mental health check-in week that I want to challenge us as we've moved through these 5 days. And this is a phrase that I coined and that I'm I wanted to get out there. I want people to become this, which is I want to challenge us to become what I call an emotional loan officer. An emotional loan officer. What I mean by that is I can loan to people what they emotionally need in that moment. I loan you my hope. I loan you my strength. I loan you my resiliency. And the list goes on, right? I loan you my silence in the midst of your chaos. And instead of saying, calm down, my response is, what can I do to help you? What can I do to come alongside you? And here's the big piece. And people often ask, well, why didn't you say, give it? No, I loan it to you until you are able to loan it to others. Does that make sense? I loan it to you because I want this to be something that we are carrying forward. So I want to challenge us. Put that in the chat feature, write that in the chat feature, post that. Be an emotional loan officer. We need to be that for people, right? There are people who are grieving, who are hurting, who are struggling, who are going through, right? And let's be people that loan to people what they need in that moment, so that once they've received it, they now in turn are able to loan it to others. Make sense?
So love it.
That's what we're doing this week. We're being an emotional loan officer.
If you're going to be an emotional loan officer, type in ELO. ELO.
Oh, Sean.
I love it. ELO. No, exactly. I literally love that. I mean, that's the idea of paying it forward.
That's the idea of
paying it forward. And that's it. Because you're not holding this to yourself, right?
Yes.
You're not keeping this. You're saying, I've now received it, so I'm passing it on. And once you've received it from me, I expect you to now become an emotional loan officer to those who need it. And Sean and Michelle, again, I'm highlighting you because I'm with you and the work that you do. I want to big that up, so to speak, right? I want to make that so I want you to see through a different lens that's what you do for people. That's why people are drawn to you, right? It's not just double dutch. It's not just, jumping ropes, but you two are so reflective of that. You loan to us what we need in that moment. You loan us hope. You loan us energy. You loan us resilience, because sometimes we just don't have it. And when we see your joy, right? When we see your light and your energy, man, we take that on, and we now in turn become that for others. So I want to remind you both, make sure you take care of yourselves. Self-care is the key. You are giving to so many people, but take time to make sure that you invest in you. You create those boundaries and those spaces, because again, we don't want the well that we draw from to become dry. Make sense? Mm-hmm. Wow. Yes. Be an emotional loan officer, my friends. That's our challenge. ELO.
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 ELO. I love that.
I love that.
Loan officer. I love that. All right, so yeah, we could create this rippling effect around the world. We could.
That's what we want to do.
Oh man, we could save the whole world. All right, there's a lot of ones. There's a lot of DRs.
Wow,
and look, Marais, they don't mean Dominican Republic. They talking about you.
I appreciate that.
Tina wrote Doc.
Yes.
Amen. We got some amen. Hallelujahs.
Amen.
All right.
Hallelujah.
We got ELOs. Yes. Oh man, they are participating. They are participating. I love it. Oh man, I closed it. I closed it by accident.
You got it back.
Yeah, but I can't see everybody's thing. I can't scroll. I closed it by mistake, guys. Oh wait, I didn't close it here.
Yes.
Hold on one second. If you guys have any questions, let us know.
This is the time. If you have any questions.
And by the way, if you guys want to follow Marais, Marais, you can.
And guys, if you want to see this again or share this, go to it's on our Double Dutch Aerobics TV on YouTube. It'll be under the live videos. Double Dutch Aerobics TV on YouTube. Make sure to subscribe.
So let me give you his IG information. It's right there.
Yeah.
It's Marais Cassell. Y'all could go check him out. Follow him. You got questions. I always say, don't call me. Call the doc.
We're not doctors. We're just humans. We're ELOs.
Call the DR.
There you go. Your ELOs.
That's the way ELOs. Call Dr. Marais Cassell. He has the answers. And then we have
somebody had a question.
A doc. Somebody has a question. So let me just give his information real quick, and then we'll go to the question. All right. So also, you can go to his website, C3inthistogether.com. You know, if you say it 3 times, you never forget it. C3inthistogether.com. That's 2. C3inthistogether.com. That is 3.
Yes.
And you can also go on his YouTube page, C3 in This Together with Dr. Marais Cassell. That's how you can follow him. we're gonna take a couple of questions because we're gonna have to go soon. But if you have any questions, go ahead.
What who do you go to when you need to decompress?
Good question. I'll ask it this way. Who are the sources of strength in your life? Who is the person that gives you strength, that when you go to them, they are life givers and not life drainers? Because you have people who are life givers and who are life drainers, right? So go to someone that will give you life. And then if it's not someone that I don't want to use trusted, but perhaps it's a family member, a loved one, maybe go to someone that's objective, right? Someone that you can be transparent with, right? Someone that you can trust to put that stuff in, right? So whoever it is that gives you strength, find someone that that you can trust with your stuff, is what I'm saying, right? You can decompress, that they won't judge you, right? That they'll allow you to be who you are, and that that when you leave that stuff with them, it stays there. So who do you decompress with? Someone that can receive it, someone that can handle it. Let me say to you another way: be very careful who you invite into the delivery room of your experience.
Ooh.
So not everybody needs to be in the delivery room. Back in the days, when women were giving birth, I saw that, Sean. That one hit you, right? Right.
Because you know how my wife feels about the delivery room.
He was the only person. Nobody else could come in the delivery room with me.
I get it.
You get it, right?
Nobody could come. It was only him.
Only him, right? But back in the days, right, before they allowed everyone to come in, or a lot of people, they'd be very careful who got into that delivery room, because you'd be bringing in things that shouldn't, right? When you're in that delivery room, when you're going through pain, when you're going through hurt, when you're managing stuff, be careful who comes into that room. And then the other thing is, be careful who you invite to dress your wounds. Not everybody needs to be the person that's offering medicine to you, because some of that medicine is not good for you. So that's to answer your question, right? Not everybody needs to dress your wounds. And not everybody, here's another one, not everybody that you spoke to before deserves to be your lifetime therapist.
Oh, wow.
Makes sense?
Yes. Yeah. That was good. That was really good. Okay, let me just go through, and that should be about it.
And
that should be.
Well, you got to go back to the.
I'm sorry.
Go back.
Somebody. I'm trying to go.
No, go back.
Go back here.
So
okay.
Yes. So I was gonna say another thing for those people who feel like they don't have anyone. That's part of the reason I use the Unity prayer line. I want to let people know that there are. If you feel like you don't have a person, and you're like, oh no, I don't have a friend, or I don't have a cousin, or I don't have a aunt, or I'm the strongest person, so I can't do that for any. Be that for. I don't have a person to go to for that. I felt like that's part of the reason I used the Unity prayer line, because it was very objective, very far away.
That's it.
Not far away, but very helpful without any weight. It was an easy decompress thing for me. So some people use that as well. Some people use their resources. There are groups, like literally there are grieving groups. There are resources.
There you go.
If you don't feel like you have that person, or you're the kind of person that doesn't feel like they want to burden anyone, then there are resources for you to be able to have a place to decompress. But I think it's good to have a place, but don't think you need a person. You know what I'm saying? Don't think there are resources.
And listen, we were created for community, right? And that's what, for example, again, I'm very clear about my faith experience, that for me, that community is church. So whatever that is for you, you find that community, whether it's a prayer line, whether it's church, whether it's a mosque, whether it's a synagogue, whatever. When we talk about faith in the context of mental health, I always say it this way: what causes your spirit to soar, right? That's where you go. Again, for me, my community is church. It's the clergy. It's it's in worship. It's in prayer. It's meditation. It's reading the scriptures, right? But find a safe place to put that stuff. I'll tell you this, what I love about the work that I get to do is I see all kinds of people. And one of the first things I will tell them is when you come into this space with me, you don't have to be the doctor. You don't have to be that athlete. You don't have to, in this place, you are just who you are.
That's right.
I'm the expert in the room. Let that be on me, right? You just be safe in this place, right? So therapy might be that place for some people as well, because you get to be incognito. People are not, especially when we talk about athletes, we love the work that we get to do with athletes and celebrities, in therapy, is that for us, they are superhumans. They are what's called hierophants, is what they call them, right? Gods of the basketball court or gods of the field. But when they come into therapy, right, they are just who they are, right? And, I'm not mesmerized by who people are, right? I'm grateful for your titles and your positions and your money and all of that. But when you come into this safe place, right, this is safe for you. Right. So
right. Yeah. All right. So guys, that
was good.
That is it. We have finally wrapped up our 5-day mental every week. It has been amazing. If you have enjoyed everything that you've heard today, right now, I want you to follow Maurice right now.
Right now.
So you could log off this bad boy and follow him right now on Instagram. It's been a pleasure.
It's been a pleasure.
Of course, we're friends, so we'll speak later. But every day, just picking your brain, getting all of this valuable information, information that the world needs. This has been great. I have been looking forward to 8 o'clock every single day. So I really appreciate this. And if you guys appreciate this, you go ahead and follow Maurice. But you could also follow Double Dutch Aerobics. But I guess you're following us if you're on.
Subscribe to see all that happened this week. You can also go any repeats of these lives. They're on subscribe to Double Dutch Aerobics TV on YouTube to see the repeats of these lives that we did all week.
Yes. My cousin said he just followed you. All right. So shout out to Nomino. All right. So look, we're gonna get out of here. Thank you guys for joining us.
Thank you all. We love you all. We want you to know that we're not just saying that. We are honored that we get to come into your homes, get to come into your lives. Thank you for trusting us this week to speak into those sacred places. And please know, Sean and Michelle, thank you. Thank you for doing this. You have no idea what this has done for people. I mean, you're going to hear this. Hopefully people will reach out to you and let you know how this became a turning point for them, a tipping point for them, how this brought hope and healing. So thank you, Sean and Michelle, for doing this and for inviting me, because again, you're doing amazing work and I get to collaborate with you. Thank you.
No, thank you. And thank you guys. Thank you guys for being transparent. Thank you for your questions and your comments. Thank you for participating. And we are going to be doing this a lot more. All right.
All right.
We'll see you guys maybe next week. I don't know. I'll email you. By the way, if you're not on the email list,
you better get on.
You better get on that email list. Go ahead and go to doubledutchaerobics.com. It takes 2 seconds.
All Tell them about next week. Remind them about March 13th. They've got to tune in.
March 13th, we're on.
He's also a publicist, by the way.
We're on The Amazing Race. You get to see us run the world. Around the world, run literally in a race for a milli. We get to run around. We can't tell you what parts of the world. Make sure to tune in. And we have obstacles put against us because we're all in a race, 13 teams for $1 million.
$1 million?
A race around the world with different obstacles placed in your way. You don't know what kind of obstacles.
You don't know.
Could be this, could be that, could be this, could be that.
That's all. Look, that's all we can tell you.
But we, Team Red. Okay. All right, Amazing Race, March 13th, CBS.
9:30.
9:30 Eastern Standard Time.
Eastern Standard Time.
And we don't have regular TV, so we'll be watching on Hulu.
Can we tell them where we going the following day?
I don't know.
We
can't tell them.
All right, we're doing a humongous podcast
yes.
the very next day. I'll give you a hint.
Stop, Sean. No, we're
talking about a hint. I gotta give him a hint. We gotta fly to Dallas. That's all I'm gonna say. That's it. All right, y'all.
All right, guys.
See y'all.
See you. Have a good one.
I don't even know, Jake.
Bye.
Sayonara.
Bye. I don't know how to say bye. Goodbye. I learn how to say goodbye.